The Waco Siege, also known as the Waco Massacre, was a siege of a compound that belonged to a religious sect called the Branch Davidians. There were suspicions that the group was stockpiling illegal weapons, and the ATF obtained arrest warrants for several high-ranking members of the group, including its leader, David Koresh, as well as a search warrant for the compound. Federal law enforcement, state, and the US military all participated. The siege ended on April 19, 1993, when Janet Reno was given the go-ahead to end the situation. There's a heavy debate that goes on to this day, almost 30 years later, about what exactly went down and how accurate those claims were. Preppers can pull a lesson from this historical event. It serves as an example of how bugging in can go extremely wrong. When sufficient forces are gathered against a specific target, the success of the siege relies on breaching the defenses of the quote-unquote fort. This has been the goal of every siege since humans decided to protect themselves with walls and ranged weapons. The official sources say that the original plan was not to conduct an armed assault. It's claimed that the Branch Davidians shot first, and the situation rapidly deteriorated. Eventually, 3 simultaneous fires started around noon on the 19th. The government claimed that the people inside started the fire, while survivors maintained the fire was started either accidentally or deliberately by the assault. Believe what you will. The pre-planned escape routes were cut off due to damage that resulted from the assault breaching different locations of the compound, and many people were trapped in what was known as the bunker. Causes of death ranged from smoke inhalation to murder-suicide. Every exit point from your location in a fortification is also a point of potential entry by external forces who want to take your stuff. There were a good number of armed adults in there, but they couldn't withstand a larger group. For preppers who've paid attention, relying on the denial of entry by force will only work if you possess superior numbers and arms. Eventually, every fort, every garrison can be overrun. If there are 500 zombies who are more like the 28 Days Later zombies rather than the Walking Dead variety, you can bet sooner or later that they will get in. Protection is important, but taking a heavy and prominent stance while attracting attention might not be the best course of action. Appearing to be as equally nondescript as the baseline average person in your neighborhood is important. OPSEC matters, but you don't need to do anything crazy like only taking delivery requests at night. In fact, that makes you stick out more. No one will bat an eye with an extra bag of rice here and an extra case of water there, or long-term items like ceramic water filters being delivered to your door by an Amazon delivery driver. A compound with a bunker sounds great until you're surrounded and somebody decides to light a fire. You'll either come out or not, and even if you do make it outside, the assaulting force will determine whether you live or you die. But with low-key preparation, you now have more materials and resources than average. I guarantee no one is super interested in counting how many grocery bags you bring in. In fact, you can now start to band together in a group based on what you know about everyone's individual skills and backgrounds in the event of an emergency. Even someone with no special skill to offer can at least make sure water filters don't get clogged, that plants are watered, or no strangers are now casing the neighborhood. You can now focus on defense in a traditional small town kind of way, where everyone local knows everyone else. Bugging into a highly visible and known cabin in the woods sounds great, until you have to protect it. If you pair that with a hostile attitude, and you manage to send Farmer John to heaven when he was just coming up the hill to ask if you wanted some milk from his cows, you're going to have a bad time. Never assume no one else is as well armed as you, or that they don't have friends or family in greater numbers than the group that you have. Flares and strong lights aimed at your hideout can negate lots of stuff. FLIR is also relatively cheap to buy nowadays as well, and who knows if someone isn't already listening to see if you're communicating on something like a Baofeng. Farmer John's family and support system will be coming for you. You can easily see why humans have managed to survive better in communities, and why it's so important to build a new culture of responsibility that places an importance on family ties. If things ever get bad, we will only really have each other. Look around at places like LA and SF where follow home robberies are happening. A lot of these guys are going to target people that they feel have more than they do. The Golden Horde scenario is here. It just doesn't look like anything that we expected. So to get back to Waco, they were armed, they had supplies, they held out against local authority. However, the bigger the guns that came in, the less of a chance they had to get out. And I don't mean black helicopters are coming from you. I'm thinking if you have built up your reputation as that ornery guy that's going to fly off the handle and be hostile, remember, you are not the only one out there, especially if you live in a large city. People are going to hear about the weird guy with supplies that's kind of an asshole to everybody, and then they're going to come for that guy, rather than the guy that might have some supplies, but definitely has some know-how and is actively teaching people how to get through tough times. It's up to you to decide based on where you live, the temperament of the people, and how much of this you can engage in. I hope you take this into consideration when you go forward and you start interacting with your neighbors, your family, and your friends out there. Why not start teaching? Why not welcome them into the fold? You just have to do it slowly, and eventually the habits will start forming. Just make the connections, how all of these changes, all of these negative events are going to affect them as an individual eventually. For example, just think, in the last month, a lot of people are starting to wake up to the issues that we're having because of gas prices. So be a good neighbor, be a good prepper. Let's start seeing how we can start impacting the culture at our local levels. Get involved in the education system, get involved in local politics, start talking to neighbors and family and friends about these things. So until the next video, guys, be good, stay safe, and have a good one.